Fantasy Sports. Of course, awesemo.com, Dave Lochran, Jay Curry. We got 12 games today. 10 on the main slate, 2 on the early slate. I guess, Jake, we can cover the early one quickly. But before we do that, before I jump into any reads, let's kick it off with some lineup study. An interesting night last night. We decided before the show what we'd discuss. We try and come up with a game plan for lineup study, what we're going to look at. And we ultimately decided that it's not the worst idea to look at Alex Baker, Awesemo's lineups, because it seems like he's winning every night. And generally speaking, he is. And by winning, I mean, maybe not first place, but 50K to second ain't bad. And it seems every night, or at least several times a week. So why not take a look at his lineups and where his exposures were on a night where he didn't have the best night? That was yesterday, and it still was, break even basically, Jake?
Yeah, I would say definitely wasn't the worst night. The chalk did well. So usually, Alex has even talked about it. When the chalk does really well, he usually doesn't have good nights. He has better nights on slates where the top scorer is below like 200 because he's just so good at constructing contrarian lineups that also project well, but not as well as like your top chalk stacks. So like here, you're seeing scores over 200. That's probably not going to be a night where Alex does the cleanup job across the sites. And I didn't look at FanDuel just because it's hard to do that on lineup study. But yeah, you see here, even on a rough night, he lost $68 in this tournament. Made some money in other tournaments. So yeah, I don't think it was too bad of a night. But his top finish was 38th. So I'm actually, I was talking about the payout structure in this tournament compared to the early one. And you see a bunch of people made profit and they didn't finish in like the top 10 or even the top 20. In this tournament, it was a little bit different because there was 100K more in prize money, but still that 50K to first compared to that early yesterday, which was
Right.
150K. So definitely helped out some of these people that didn't quite get there, but we're still able to make some profit. So his 150, I have it pulled up. I have his exposures right over here. 88% Max Scherzer. So he was definitely right there. He was, 4 times the field almost, 23%. Scherzer was 88.7 for Alex. Hitting across the board, you see, man, he was big on this Detroit stack. Were you on them at all?
No, I wasn't.
Neither was I, really. I think I had a couple Detroit stacks, but
I had some Trevor Williams too, who had 7 strikeouts in 5 innings, but had a couple of ugly innings as well. It wasn't super heavy on Detroit, which is funny because we talked about it, and like Kristen Walker and like Nico Goodrum and Castellanos, they're always in play at that price.
Right.
And maybe that's just the way it worked out with having 88% Max Scherzer at 12K.
Yeah, so that's what it had to be, right? He just needed cheap stacks because Scherzer was grading out so well for him.
Right.
And Detroit was, I don't know if they ended up doing really well, but enough that he was able to get close to sneaking out a profit in this tournament.
I think they finished with 7 runs and still lost. But yeah, I think they had 7 early runs. I don't think they finished with anything more than that. They had a couple of home runs though. Yeah, 7 runs here. Tigers had home runs from Dixon and Castro and a handful of doubles, but they tailed off after the 3rd inning. There's no runs
Right.
from the 4th through 9th.
Yeah, so it could have been a huge night if Detroit would have put up a couple of runs, if Hicks would have gotten in on it. A 0 from your highest exposed or second highest exposed hitter and your highest exposed catcher is certainly going to hurt. But yeah, like it's just crazy. Even on a night where things didn't go his way, he managed to get back 95% of his entry fee in this tournament.
So what were his other highest stack exposures on a night where, to kind of set the table, the Indians scored 10 runs and the Indians were popular, right? We saw Kipnis very cheap with 2 home runs on the day. Like a few of the teams, as you mentioned a second ago, that were popular ended up doing really well.
Yeah, so he had
Angels too.
He had 6 Indians, 5-man, 6 Indians, 4-mans. So it wasn't like he just faded them completely. Looking at the Angels, he had 8 Angels 5-mans, 7 Angels 4-mans. So he had these teams probably just with some contrarian teams. Yeah, it looks like a lot of Detroit with the Angels.
So he had 10% Angel stacks.
Yeah. So he wasn't hurting there, but I don't think he made a big stand on the field by any means. I think they were about 10% owned.
I've always been fascinated by how he'll spread, depending on the slate, really spread stack exposure out a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And give yourself a shot at almost any team on the slate, outside of maybe Philly against Scherzer or, the Tigers against Chris Sale. But it seems like you usually, when any team goes off, maybe not the Marlins, but like any team goes off, you see that he's up there with that lineup and definitely spreads things out.
Yeah. Let's see how many teams he actually ended up stacking. So let's find Alex. We'll make those. So he stacked 18 teams. I don't know if that counts 2-mans though, and 3-mans. He usually tries to stack about half the teams on the slate. So right here we have 18. But looking at his actual stacks, I would imagine he had more like 8 to 12 teams that he actually had more than a couple stacks of.
Right. And it was a 10-game slate. So assuming it's 10 or 12, it's half or more.
Ooh, yeah. So he didn't have a lot of Dodgers. He had 5-mans. They did okay, it's looking like. But yeah, it looks like just nothing kind of broke free. He actually did spread it out pretty good.
Yeah, I figured.
Guess how many Detroit 5-mans he had?
Well, you said a lot. I'm going to say like 40.
24 5-mans.
That's a lot.
8 4-mans. So really heavy on Detroit. So just a couple more runs there probably would have been a huge day for him across all the
That's over
tournaments.
20% Tiger stacks.
Crazy stuff.
And the funny thing is they still put up 7
I
runs
know.
and 5 extra base hits.
Yeah. So
Wow.
losing night, or maybe a losing night in this tournament, and maybe a couple other ones, but could have been huge. So that's the difference,
Yeah,
Couple
absolutely.
things go his way, and yeah, he's probably banking another 100K.
Yeah. Well, there's always tonight. Anyway, that's good stuff, though. It's important to see what happens on nights where you're not. Like somebody had asked me a question the other day, like, "Hey, if I use Fantasy Crunch or Rewind, am I just trying to basically replicate the lineups, the winning scores at the top of the lineup?" And it's like, no, if you do that, you might be trying to replicate a night where a Marlins stack went off against Jacob deGrom. And you're not, when you're retroactively trying to fit your lineups into something that might not have been the best way to do it, you're not doing any favors for yourself going forward. Like, if it's a night where Alex and there's a lot of other well-known players are at the top, sure, you want to see what they did. Like you want to see where they're making decisions differently than yours. But if it's a night where 20 guys are at the top that you've never heard of, and it's Marlins stacks and Tiger stacks against Clayton Kershaw, well, it's not doing you much to try and emulate those lineups for the next day.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, when you're crunching, maybe you just see which kind of lineup construction did the best. Was it 5-3? Was it 5-2? Was
Right.
it 4-4, 4-3? I know that's something Alex talks about, and I don't know. Don't play someone you wouldn't have.
Unless you should have.
Right. So, like, Detroit was a viable stack last night because of Scherzer. They were a viable 5-man, as you saw with Alex's lineups. So maybe figure out a way, maybe you use more randomness and you get more Detroit or something like that. And maybe you use more randomness going forward. But, yeah, it's a tricky thing with lineup rewind because it shows you how much you would have won in the tournament now.
I know.
So just, you'll probably be able to bank when you run a couple different crunches with it, like knowing the results already. But
Exactly.
everyone's
Right.
a millionaire on fantasy.
Just
Crunch.
lock in all the top stacks.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
That's
but in
exactly
all
right.
seriousness, lineup rewind can be really helpful. It's just you're trying to do it to see, not to emulate or replicate the highest score, but to see where you may have gone wrong, or if you didn't go wrong at all, and it just wasn't a night that played out well.
Right.
All
Exactly.
right, Jake, we got 12 games. Let's just quickly. We don't even need to really go game by game on the early slate. Just see what we have here. Texas, Cleveland, Arizona, Colorado, two hitter friendly parks, one much more than the other in Globe Life. Shane Bieber on the mound. You want to talk about an enigmatic pitcher this season? He's been all over the place. Like that start against the Yankees, he had 4 strikeouts in his first 5 batters faced, 5 straight outs, and then gave up 8 straight hits or walks and was out of the game by the second inning. And then he goes 7 2/3 with 12 Ks against Detroit. He's really been all over the map this season, but more times than not, Bieber's been a very good pitcher. Tough matchup today. It helps that the Rangers still have Joey Gallo and Hunter Pence on the IL. It could be worse. And then on the other side of this game, you've got Mike Minor. And then in Colorado or in Arizona, between the D-backs and Rockies, Robbie Ray against a Rockies team that away from Coors has been a disaster this season and most seasons in recent memory. And of course, Jeff Hoffman on the bump for Colorado. So those are our 4 pitchers for this 2-gamer. And yes, we're talking about it because these sites there's huge prize pools once again for a short slate like this.
Yeah. I'll probably be playing this early slate. I mean, why not? There are still edges to be had on 2-game slates, whether you're multi-entering or single entering. So yeah, you mentioned Bieber. He's been all over the place, both extremes. I think here he would probably be my highest exposed guy against Texas. Just a 4.3 implied total, despite some really good weather for the Rangers. He's got probably the highest strikeout upside on the slate. You could maybe make a case that Ray does, but I think Bieber is my favorite guy here, and then it's probably Robbie Ray. I would assume that's going to be a chalky pairing. We don't have ownership up yet for the early slate. The guy that's probably going to get left off for me is Hoffman. I don't know about you. I just don't think he's very good. He's 5K, so that might bait some people into playing him. But I'm hoping to get a bunch of leverage with this Diamondback stack on the early slate because they look a little bit overpriced compared to like the Cleveland Bats in a similar implied total. So I like going to Arizona if I can here.
So let's talk about the Rangers for a second. Shane Bieber has a 31.8% K rate against lefties, 30.6 against righties. Stellar, right?
Right.
But against lefties, 248 ISO, 2.25 home runs per 9 allowed. He has a 3.2 xFIP though. His numbers are all over the map as far as lefties go. And I think he's just going to be one of those guys that gives up a lot of power to lefties, but not a lot of base runners.
Yeah.
And where do you settle on something like this if you're playing 150 lineups on a 2-gamer? How much Texas exposure are you going to have? And are you willing to play, 1 bat against Bieber hoping for a homer, or 2 bats against Bieber? I think it's a really unique situation for Bieber here at a hitter-friendly park against a shorthanded Texas team, but also a Texas team that can run out 6 lefties today without issue.
Yeah, I think you can do that against both Bieber and Ray. And like you can play a bat or maybe even 2 bats against them because they're the type of guys that can get you 7, 8, 10 strikeouts, but also give up 2 solo shots. And that's going to differentiate your lineups because a lot of people will forget to uncheck the don't stack against my pitcher or don't allow players against my pitcher thing in Fantasy Cruncher or whatever optimizer they're using. So I actually really like that. I'm glad you brought that up because, yeah, Bieber is, he's got a great chance to get a bunch of strikeouts here, but he's probably going to give up a home run or, a couple doubles. So maybe you play Bieber, but to get some salary relief, you also play Nomar Mazara for 3,800,
right?
Or Asdrubal Cabrera for 3,500, or even Odor, who's been terrible, 3,500. So they are cheap. You can kind of use them to both differentiate and get salary relief to get in some other big bats elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And those prices, like you mentioned, are really discounted, man. Like they're really, really cheap. I don't think it's crazy at all to play a Mazara against Bieber and hope for a solo shot. But Home runs against lefties have been a legitimate issue for him. You look at some of these starts, 2 home runs against Minnesota, 3 to Boston, 4 to the White Sox. When Bieber does unravel, it gets really rough. But he can also have good starts with 2 solo shots allowed as well. I think there's a ton of ways to approach this slate. I really do. It's one of the more unique slates, like short slates that we've seen in a while because of Ray and because of Bieber and because of the power bats, opposite-handed power bats on each side.
Yeah, I mean, you got Arenado and Story against the lefty, against a pitcher that's probably going to be pretty chalky. So I have no issue, if you can afford it, playing those guys against Robbie Ray. Same thing, maybe even include Desmond or Ionetta catching as well, hits lefties.
Yep.
So there's a lot of options. I would definitely recommend at least keeping the option open of using a couple hitters against your pitcher on this slate.
Where are you at on Minor, who's just like continuously outperformed expectations, right? Almost every single day. And you know what? Minor has not had a lot of easy matchups. Like you just look at his last 10. He's had one at Houston, at LA, or at the Angels, at Boston, at Cincy, which is a horrible park to pitch in. Minor goes out there against a ton of righties in bad parks against good teams and lights them up.
Yeah, he really does. Looking at his advanced stuff, 12.1% swing strike rate, 32.5% O swing percentage. And this is against teams that all have like 5+ implied totals, basically the whole season. So he never looks like appealing, but he's going to be a guy that I probably have more than the field just because I'm factoring in ownerships into the lineups I actually put in. So I would think these Cleveland bats will be very popular. You still got Jose Ramirez there for 3,500. Kipnis just double donged lefty yesterday, so people are going to go back to him. Plawecki, if he's in the lineup, is 2,800 catcher spot. That's going to be popular. And then there's just some really nice pricing. Even Lindor at 4,800 is going to be appealing to people. So while I understand the Cleveland stack, Minor's just been really, really good. So that's going to be a stack I'm probably below on. Minor would probably still be my 3rd favorite pitcher on the slate. But he's definitely close to Ray, I think.
No, I agree with you. And I think we're going to move on to the main slate here, but just one more point or question is kind of when you just spoke through all that and worked through all that, the one thing that stands out is I agree that Minor would be my number 3 here, but I wouldn't at all be surprised to see him finish as the number 1.
Oh, no, not at all. He's that kind of talented, as he showed multiple times this season. And you've got the guys we have in front of him are 2 super volatile pitchers in Ray and Bieber.
Right. So there's a million. Here's what I would say. It's generally really difficult to get away from chalk on these short slates. And when I say get away from it, you're not looking for like 1% 9-hole hitters, against Mike Minor, but lesser owned in context. Mm-hmm. Seems like one of those slates where you can actually do that and still have a really high ceiling.
Yep.
All right.
I agree.
All right, let's talk about this main slate then. We've got 10 games for a Thursday. A lot of games. Yeah. Generally, you don't see that much. We'll start with the Yankees and Houston. Framber Valdez, Chad Green's opening. He's been a very good opener. I mean, pretty much just locking teams down recently, even though his overall numbers are pretty ugly. Most of that's from the beginning of the season. Outside of that, recently he's been very good. And last I looked, we didn't have odds on this game.
Still don't.
Or what?
We still don't, I don't think.
So here's what oh yeah, we got him now.
Oh, we do.
So I had, let's see if I came in close. I had the Yankees at 5-3. I had the Astros at 4-7. So we got, look at that. Yankees 5-3, Astros 4-8. The money shot.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I had Yankees at -130. They're -128. We'll take it. I put initially I had them at 5, moved it to 5-3 just because they always have monster totals. They're getting healthier. Valdez isn't bad. Like, he's not bad, but he's also a lefty that's facing a lot. Did you see what they did to Blake Snell yesterday?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, this team is so scary.
Oh my
Um,
God.
with
And what's crazy is, yeah, Snell couldn't find the strike zone. But there's nothing worse than not being able to find the strike zone and not getting any swings on pitches outside of it.
Yeah, I mean, they might be a team where you should never blanket say like don't target against this team, but versus a lefty in any sort of hitter friendly park or neutral park that doesn't miss bats, I don't know that you can really like play Valdez here. So I just want all the Yankees bats. Um, Nice implied total, pretty modest. There are some weather concerns, so maybe that keeps the ownership down a little bit, but like I think Valdez is a fine pitcher. He's a guy that I've played recently in good matchups. But when you're going up against Voit and Sanchez and Stanton, who's back, Gleyber Torres, you saw what he could do yesterday. It's just such a deep lineup with a bunch of righty power. So a lot of landmines here for Valdez. Do we know who's going in
No,
after Chad Green? We don't?
no.
Okay.
At least I looked about 20 minutes ago before we started the show, and I saw nothing that would tell us who it was. And we've had that issue with the Yankees a few times when Green opens.
Yeah. I wonder if they've said anything recently because we just got a total here. So maybe there's some sort of clarity. But yeah, I don't see anything right now.
All right.
So I probably wouldn't want to play anyone against Houston, unless they're just super cheap for whatever reason, with like Altuve back and you've got Jordan Alvarez. This looks like they're getting a little bit healthier. Same thing with the Yankees.
Right. Yeah, Altuve being back is a huge deal, man.
Yeah.
And just having Alvarez, like you mentioned, in the lineup, what a difference that makes. He's been phenomenal. Look, I have respect for Valdez, but assuming weather holds up here, I would not be afraid to look at some of these Yankee bats. Now, obviously, pricing comes into play. Like, how expensive are they? Stanton's 4,600 on DraftKings.
Wow.
Against a lefty. Didi Gregorius, sure, lefty, but 41. These guys are not that expensive. Yes, Encarnacion, Luke Voigt are up there, but you're not getting egregious price tags on them. It's not the craziest idea. They've been a lot more expensive recently than they are today against the lefty, who is fine, but I just don't see how Valdez is going to be able to get through this lineup unscathed.
Yeah, that's the tough part. Like he might get through it one time through the order, but if Valdez was like free here, I would maybe consider him as just like a GPP flyer as one of those guys you play at 5K. But 7,100, you need him to actually do something too and not get blown up. So
Right.
that kind of takes him off the table for me. I'm looking at the Yankees bullpen usage, and I mean Sessa pitched yesterday, so it's probably not going to be him. Maybe David Hale hasn't pitched in a few days. Could be him. I don't know. But it might just be a true bullpen game. We've got another one of those later as well.
Yeah, and we've got 10 games on this slate. I'm not going to go, if we find out later in the day, then maybe we can make some adjustments. But right now, I'm not even going to speculate on it. There's a lot of great teams with high run totals today. So I think, Yankee bats in this game are what appeal to me most.
Agreed.
Nick Pivetta, Eric Fetty. This one didn't have a total either. I think we might now.
We have one now.
I had 5 for the Nats, and I had 4-8 for the Phillies.
Just a little higher on the Nats. You nailed the Phillies.
Yeah, nailed the Phillies. 5-4 on the Nats. They're 129 favorites. All right. I should have known. Yeah, no respect for Nick Pivetta. But Pivetta, let's get your take on this, Jake, because Pivetta really hasn't been bad. Sure, he gave up 4 runs to the Braves last time out, but they're tuning up everybody. Aside from that, though, ever since returning, Pivetta's been pretty impressive, and he looks like he's a whole lot different than he was early in the season when Gabe Kapler said he had no conviction to get outs, which was basically saying, I can't use that word, but you get the point. And then Eric Fetty, I I have zero faith in Eric Fetty. Is he terrible? Probably not terrible, but he's not going to miss a lot of bats whatsoever. And, I take that into consideration. So uh, I like the Nats a lot more the past couple days than I do against Pivetta. But the big thing is he's homer prone. When he has bad starts, he will give up a lot of homers, like 3 last time out. And over his last 9 starts, he's allowed multiple home runs 4 times. So that's his Achilles.
Yeah, I mean, when it goes for Pavetta, it goes very quickly, and the stack
Yeah.
against him can be very profitable. So definitely going to be playing both sides of Pavetta versus the Nats. You see the nice price tag here for Pavetta, 8,200. He struck out at least 6 in each of his 4 starts since returning from AAA. So he's a guy that I wrote up, and he's also, short sample, but top 30 in the MLB in whiffs per swing in the month of June. So
Beautiful.
he's around guys like Herman Marquez, Flaherty, and Jake Odorizzi, who are all, pitchers that we like to play, and guys that are priced much higher than 8,200. So he still can miss bats despite not having the conviction, a couple months ago or whatever his manager
Yeah.
said about him. So you've got some really concerning bats in Soto, especially, and Matt Adams, but even righty power can be profitable against Pivetta. So it is a boomer bust spot, as they call it here. MME, I'm going to be over on Pivetta, but certainly going to have some one-offs because of how homer prone he can be.
Yeah. 12.5% swinging strike rate since he was recalled. Uh, some of the numbers are good. Some of them are a little bit underwhelming, but he is still missing bats, which is kind of the most important thing. And outside of that, he's got a 3.3 xFIP over that span, so it's not like he's been lucky. Actually, you could probably argue that he's been a little bit unlucky with some of this, but I'd say overall, this is what you're expecting. But he does have a 22.7% home run to fly ball rate, which can be a completely misleading and useless stat if not used in context. Um, he's been getting a lot more ground balls, but also has a 25% line drive rate since returning, and has given up some hard contact. So, if balls are being hit hard in the right spots, and they are being hit hard, it could be a rough day for Pivetta, which means I still have interest in guys like Matt Adams and obviously in Juan Soto, who has been routinely underpriced on DraftKings specifically. Those guys, to me, are the most appealing. What are your thoughts on Philly hitters with this skeleton crew of a lineup? They're starting to get healthier now after getting Real Muto and Jay Bruce back. But, man, they have looked anemic at the plate.
Yeah, it looks a little bit more of a normal lineup here for Philadelphia. I really like Reese Hoskins here for 4,600, and Harper for 4,400. He's another one like Soto. His price is just broken. I know he's not having a great season, but he still has power, and so I'm okay with the increase in strikeouts or whatever. So there's a lot of really nice values on Philadelphia for a team with a near 5 implied total. Looks like really good weather here in DC, 85 degrees, wind blowing out to right center. So, yeah, I like me some Phillies bats as well. Any Fede for you? 5,300?
No, there's just not enough strikeout upside for me. Like, I'm perfectly willing to play cheap pitchers. And you know what? Because he's this cheap on a 2-pitcher site, fine. Maybe you could make sense of it.
Mm.
But I have a really tough time with it. Here's why. He has a 8% swinging strike rate, 26% called plus swinging, which is very, very pedestrian. He's striking lefties and righties out at less than 20%. Actually, righties out at 10% this season with a 2% K minus BB rate. The Phillies can at least do one thing, and that's have patience at the plate and force bad pitches and run up your pitch count. I just don't think this is a very appealing spot for Eric Fitty going up against probably, 5 right-handers and Harper and Bruce on the other side. It's as bad as the Phillies have looked. I think Fetty can make them look good tonight.
Oh, for sure. Have you seen ownership at all?
No, have you?
Yeah. So we
Let
just
me
got
pull it
it.
up.
It is quite humorous. Some of these guys that are at the top. So,
Really?
yeah, I mean, some real rough names at the top. LeBlanc, Tanner Roark, both getting 20+% ownership. And then we got
Wow.
Fede down at, and Pavetta actually. So I really like Pavetta's ownership. He's under 5 right now. If he sticks like under 10%, I'm definitely going to get over on that. But yeah, a lot of cheap pitchers on this slate. So if Fede's not your guy, I get it. There's a couple other guys in the, under 5K range that you can go to as super cheap flyers. But um, I wonder if he's going to be a guy I get to just as a $5,300 favorite, even though he's not super likely to go deep and get the win here.
I mean, look, if you were to rephrase the question and say, would you rather have 40% Wade LeBlanc or a little bit of Eric Fetty? The answer is obvious because Wade LeBlanc has equally low upside, right? Like he just has a better matchup. People fall in love with the matchup, which a lot of times makes sense. I did not like Ponce de Leon yesterday. He had been terrible against righties throughout his career and at the minors with really no strikeout stuff. He goes 6-2 hit scoreless innings with 24 fantasy points. It's the Marlins. I get it. But when you get to like these type of guys, Eric Fetty and Wade LeBlanc, there's not a whole lot there. And Wade LeBlanc more times than not is going to give you, enough that as many strikeouts that you could count on one hand.
Yeah, that's the thing. None of these guys are in good strikeout matchups. You got a pretty patient Philly team. But it's like I get like LeBlanc has the best strikeout matchup of these super cheap guys, but man, if he's gonna be the guy everyone goes to, it
Right.
might just make sense to pivot because
And it's a good park. I mean, I
yeah,
understand it. I totally understand it. But 40% is a lot on a guy like Wade LeBlanc.
so much.
Like, could you see yourself matching the field on that with a
No,
10-game slate?
no.
Right?
I don't think there's a chance. He's
No.
just not gonna project well enough.
Right.
Like if he was just completely mispriced, and it was a slate that you had Scherzer and Verlander or Snell or someone like that, where you wanted to pay up with your SP1, I'd probably get to a bunch of him. But I think you're going to be able to find value elsewhere.
It's kind of a good point, though. There's no Sale, there's no DeGrom, there's no Scherzer, there's no Verlander, right?
Yeah,
So it makes a little bit of a difference. I'm assuming you'll get some LeBlanc just because he's really
for
cheap.
sure. Yeah, I almost never fade guys like that. But like,
Right.
if he sticks at, let's just say he's 30% at lock, I might have 12 to
Right.
18 or something,
Right.
and just
Not
go on.
45.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Jose Suarez, Clayton Richard, Toronto, and the Angels. The Angels' implied totals are just through the roof every single day. It is remarkable, and also deserved. This team continues to put runs up. Trout had 2 home runs and 7 RBIs yesterday. He's been unbelievable, and he is, of course. But you look here, 5.8 run implied total for the Angels, which shouldn't surprise anyone anymore, and 4.8 against Jose Suarez for Toronto. So you've got a lot of expected scoring here. And this is what we've seen in this entire series. It's a 10.5 implied total at the Rogers Center, Jake.
Yeah, man, massive total once again here for the Angels. I don't know that I have a ton of interest in pitching. I don't think on either side. I don't know a ton about Suarez, so I didn't know if you did like a look into him at all. Richard is not someone who misses a lot of bats. The Angels certainly do not help you out in that department. So even for 5,200, like I think I would have Fede above Richard right now, unless Fede's ownership goes way up or something. But yeah, just really tough matchup for Richard against Upton being back. You've obviously got Trout, who's hitting as well as he ever has right now. Ohtani can hit lefties, so yeah, it's going to be a lot of Angels bats for me once again. Ohtani's price is finally fixed on DraftKings.
So Suarez was a top 100 guy, if I recall correctly. And I remember when he made his first start, maybe like, was it 3 weeks ago or something? I remember looking over his numbers and thinking, the guy is good, but I don't know what we're going to get from a strikeout standpoint. Like Steamer has him at eight Ks per nine, which isn't terrible. Zips has him at 8.83. But in AAA last year, he was 8.39, 7.83. If you're looking at K rates, 21%, 20%. So Alex made a point on the deeper dive last week that strikeouts in AAA are, it seems like they are, there isn't a huge gap anymore from strikeouts at AAA to the major league level. So, yeah. So if you're talking like 20% at the minors at AAA, I don't know what, maybe 18% or so here, which really isn't great. He's a lefty though, and he hasn't given up much power at the minor league level at all. The big thing though is his xFIP was through the roof in both of his last two campaigns in AAA, and this season, in the few starts that he's made, I've seen nothing to suggest that we're going to get like quality numbers from Suarez. I do have interest in these Toronto bats quite a bit today. I think his $8,500 price tag on DraftKings is outrageously high. And dude, Vlad Guerrero's $3,500. It kind of is similar to talking about Tigers yesterday. Maybe you won't have to pay for a Scherzer, but just look at some of these prices. These guys are very inexpensive, and while they might not be great, they have power. Danny Jansen, if he's in the lineup, projects way better than his numbers have actually been. He's 2,200. Just look over the list of cheap bats for Toronto, and it's not hard to find, or it's not hard to discover why you would have some interest in this team against someone in Suarez that not only doesn't miss a ton of bats, but has been susceptible to power since he came to the majors. And one of the reasons for that, my guess, would be the fact that he has a 27% ground ball rate against lefties, and against righties, he has a 43% fly ball rate.
Yeah, I'm definitely in for some Blue Jays bats, especially as like one-offs and two-mans in my 4-3-1s and 5-2-1s. So, yeah, Suarez, he's done an okay job of missing bats. I don't think long-term he's going to do that great of a job to warrant at least an $8,500 price tag here. So the Blue Jays do have some strikeouts in their lineup, but you also mentioned they have power. So like guys like Vlad Guerrero and Randall Grichuk and Teoscar Hernandez and Danny Jansen, all really obvious values here. So I love those guys. I wonder if the Blue Jay stack comes in over-owned on the top stack tool, just because you've got
I would think so,
cheap prices. Yeah. But they're also going to come up as one of the top values as well. So that's usually a tricky spot for me when they're clearly over-owned, but they also have a great chance of being the top value. I usually just play a bunch of them, but not as main stacks. I don't know about you.
Right. And another thing too, though, is everyone's going to come in underweight on the lefties.
Mm-hmm.
That's another way to be different. If you have Biggio batting towards the top or Tellez, like, okay, it's a lefty-lefty matchup, but if you're stacking this team and their expected run production is high, that means the starting pitcher, who's a lefty, might not last more than 3 or 4 innings anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not crazy to still get Toronto exposure, but do it differently than where the field's coming in on.
Yeah. I love it, even especially like when you get a good hitter, lefty, like Freddie Freeman, when the Braves are going up against a lefty and he's like 5K plus, and the Brave stack is kind of chalky, but Freeman's like 6% owned. That's like the best time to pay up, because if you're assuming the stack goes off, you're assuming you're going to get extra plate appearances, you're probably going to see a righty in there, and a guy like Freeman can hit lefties. So maybe more people will be on the lefties here just because Tellez is so cheap and Biggio's under 4K. But yeah, that's a spot I love getting Contrarian with, because people just don't like to play lefty, especially when they're hand building.
Right. What about the other side of this game?
Yeah, I just really like Angels bats against Richard. Pujols at 4K, he's fine in the context of a stack, but Upton really sticks out as one of the better values on the slate at 4,200 against the lefty here.
Yeah, I expect this to be a difficult outing for Clayton Richard.
Yep. Does he still have the massive ground ball rate? this season? Isn't that what
He's
his like
always been a
saving ratio?
ground ball. He's been a ground ball guy that when he misses his spots, the ball goes really far and it leaves the
Hmm.
park. And when he doesn't, he just kills worms. And he's always done that, man. It's pretty crazy. But I also like, and also he's had his matchups have been brutal. Listen to these matchups since he's come back. Boston at Tampa, Yankees, Arizona at Houston.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Brutal,
not great.
brutal. But he doesn't get strikeouts and he doesn't miss bats. And this Angels team doesn't ever strike out. So the big thing here, all they're going to do is put balls in play against Clayton Richard. Like every ball is going to be in play. I'm more than willing to take my shot on that.
Yeah, I like the call. I just anytime there's a team, they're going to be popular, but when you're just going to have a ton of balls in play, even added variance, and you've got some really good hitters in Trout and Otani and Upton versus lefties, so it just sets up really nicely as a full stack.
All right, St. Louis and Miami. We keep it moving here. 3.4 run total for Miami, 4.7 for the Cardinals. They're minus 133 here at home. Uh, Adam Wainwright coming off the IL. He's been down for 10 days. And Zach Gallen pitching for the Marlins. This is his major league debut. So what do you know of Zach Gallen going up against the Cardinals?
He can get strikeouts, 11 Ks per nine so far this season. So it looks like he's having a really solid year. He's 9-1, even though we don't look at record very often. So I have some interest in him just because he's super, super cheap. Or not super cheap, but he's 7,300. He's not being owned right now. Maybe as more people look into him, he might come up in ownership. But you've got a bunch of righty bats here for the Cardinals that he's going to see. I haven't looked into his splits too much. I would assume he can get righties out, though, as a right-handed pitcher. So he's a guy that I'm looking at. I don't know that I'm playing a bunch of Cardinals here. They're super cheap on Yahoo is one thing that I noticed. So if you get through Gallon, you're getting that Marlins bullpen afterwards, and it's 85 degrees here in St. Louis. So there's some merit to stacking the Cardinals, but more on a site like Yahoo for me where they're just dirt cheap.
Zach Gallen's really interesting to me. By the way, he plays for the New Orleans Baby Cakes.
Is that their name? The
That's
baby?
the team.
Maybe Emax told me that before. I feel like I've heard that name.
The New Orleans Baby Cakes. What a name. Um, you're going to get a lot of righties in this lineup, right?
Mhm.
And that's what I find so fascinating about it because he struck out 60 righties in 54 innings, giving up a little bit of pop, but nothing crazy. Less than a home run per nine. He has a .79 whip versus righties. So Gallon's been legitimately good. What are we going to get from him once he makes his way up to the major league level against a good, disciplined Cardinals team? Well, we're yet to see that. But he's definitely a good pitcher. Like he definitely is solid, not just the strikeouts, but also the ability to limit runs. His last start was on June 14th. He threw 98 pitches. He's been stretched out and starting all season long. So I don't think it's crazy at all to look at Zach Gallen as a lower owned guy. Yeah, he's more expensive than like Wade LeBlanc, but he looks good. And hey, you know what? Yamamoto went out produced two really solid starts against the Cardinals. Alicia Hernandez had a great start against the Cardinals. I think two of them actually. And this is just in the past week. So it's not like Gallen can't go out there and put up decent numbers. And he projects better than both of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing not to like when you're looking at just what he's done in the minors this year. He's flashed 10K plus upside multiple times a season. The walks are not crazy, which is something guys, like Adam says, like you also say, the walks are oftentimes what keep guys out of the major. And same thing for hitters, plate discipline. So he's only
Just
got
look at Darwin's and Hernandez.
yeah, just doesn't know where the ball's going at all. So only had a couple games with more than two walks, which I like to see. in the minors. He's just had a really, really solid season. So going over 100 pitches, he's kind of got everything going for him as far as a prospect in his first start. The matchup's not perfect, but hopefully righty heavy here. And if he's going to be 1/10 of the ownership of a guy like Bundy in that same price range, sign me up for some Zach Gallen.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it whatsoever, man. He's $28 on Yahoo, which is really friendly. Really, really friendly.
Oh, yeah.
I like that a lot.
He'll be in the cheat sheets for sure.
Yeah, I would think so. Are you interested in Wainwright here?
Where's he at for ownership? I think I saw him up there at the top.
So Wainwright's at 20% on DraftKings. On Yahoo, he is $31, 17%. By the way, while we're at it, Zach Gallen, 12% at $28. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I'd be okay getting 20% of him or something on Yahoo.
For sure. Yeah, 2 out of 10 lineups or something like that. I think that's a pretty good number. Yeah, so Wainwright, the matchup's great against the Marlins, as it is for really any right-handed pitcher from a strikeout perspective. He just doesn't get that many strikeouts, and now you're getting a price bump on Wainwright. I believe he had a really nice start against the Marlins maybe 2 starts ago, or I'm thinking of Waka, actually.
No, I think Wainwright's was against the Cubs.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, he had 8 innings, 8 Ks. The start before that, he was 6 innings, 10 Ks. So kind of fell back to earth against the Cubs.
Did you take a look again at that start for Wainwright? What stands out to you?
Which one? Oh, 7 walks. My God.
7 walks and 2 hits. He had a no-hitter going into the 7th with 5 walks. It was the Edwin Jackson no-no.
That's
about
outrageous.
Yeah. Edwin, do you remember how old are you? Do you remember the Edwin Jackson no-no?
What year was it?
Dude, he had 8 walks and like 150 pitches, and he threw a no-hitter.
Oh, man, I must have been like grade school. No one's thrown 100 pitches since I've been following baseball. 150 since I've been following baseball, I don't think. Except for maybe like...
It wasn't too long ago. It was like 6 years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think I was big into baseball then, but I know what you're referencing.
2000, actually, no, I'm sorry. 2010.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
so how old are you now? 25?
I'm 24.
24. Okay.
So you were only I was in 15. High school. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he threw 149 pitches and 8 walks with a no-hitter in a 1-0 victory.
That's insane.
Amazing,
just
right?
Spread out the walks, yeah. Give up a base runner per inning, basically.
You'll like this. His first 3 innings, he threw 70 pitches and finished the game.
Insane.
Yeah. 9 base runners for Tampa in that game, and he got the no. Crazy. Just crazy.
Oh, man.
But yeah, that's what Wainwright was about. Look, honestly, I think Wainwright's fine here. He's not good, but he's better than Ponce de Leon, and Ponce de Leon just threw 6 scoreless with 2 hits and 6 Ks. Point being, could Miami go out and run up the score and put 5 runs across the plate against Wainwright? Yeah, sure. But you know what? He actually hasn't been terrible, and he isn't egregiously overpriced. He's cheaper than Ponce de Leon was yesterday. So I think I could make a decent argument for him. Wainwright has done nothing in terms of swinging strikes this year, but he is getting a good amount of called strikes, which for guys like Nola, for guys like Greinke, have worked for them. And I don't think it's crazy to think that's been working for Wainwright either, just based on what we've seen from him.
Yeah, Wainwright's actually been better versus righties than I imagined. 24% K rate.
Yeah.
You look at the Marlins K rate, I think they're also over 24. So just those 2 things alone, I think, put him in play.
Well, they're going to run 8 righties out there.
Yeah, it's just going to be a question of his ownership and it just kind of see how this mid-range shakes out, because it looks like everyone's flocking to Wainwright, but even a couple other guys, Nelson and Bundy as well.
Yeah, fading a chalky Wainwright is never a bad idea.
Yeah, right.
But if he comes in at like 15, 20%, I don't think that's a crazy high number either.
Agreed.
So
he's not priced like Michaelis. Like if he was 1K cheaper, I think he would be
everywhere.
where LeBlanc's at.
No
in ownership,
question. He'd be
but
everywhere. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good point. The 75 actually kind of works in your favor a little bit if you wanted to play Adam Wainwright.
agreed.
Do you like any? I don't really like hitters in this game.
No, not really. I mean, we like Gallon a little bit, but I think if you're playing Cardinals, maybe you just full stack it on
Yeah.
Yahoo.
And Carpenter's never a bad idea at the top of the lineup, discounted. No problems with that.
I like it.
But you're right. Stacking it would probably make the most sense. Gallon has allowed multiple home runs in 3 of his last 8 starts. So I think they've all been solo shots, but home runs are home runs.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago Cubs, New York Mets. Here's another new fella burst onto the scene. Walker Lockett. Look at that face. Looks like a mugshot. Tyler Chatwood on the bump for the Cubs. This guy has pitched 18 outings this year, 17 of them out of the bullpen. So he's going to make a spot start. He threw 56 pitches last time out. I don't know. Maybe he gets to 70 or so. Chatwood last year, if I recall correctly, had one of the worst K-minus BB rates in the league against left-handed hitters. This year out of the bullpen, Chapman is walking. Oh, well, look at that. Walking lefties at 14%. I never would have guessed. Walking righties at 14%. He's got a 3% K-minus BB rate against righties. So, never really been a guy to allow a ton of power, but he does allow a lot of base runners because he can't seem to throw enough strikes to get out of innings. What do you make of pitching here? And if nothing, we can go straight to bats.
Yeah, not much here. Chatwood, I mean, the only thing he's got really going for him is the $4,600 price tag on DraftKings. So,
and ground balls.
Yeah, it's possible you get to him, but I'm much more interested in bats in this game. Wind blowing in, so it's not like a Wrigley wind game where the totals are going to be super high, but still 5 implied for the Cubs, over 4 for the Mets here. Conforto really sticks out to me, and kind of this Mets full stack, because if Chatwood's bad, he's putting guys on base, and then you're getting guys, good power hitters like Conforto and Ramos, whatever's left of Cano, but like Pete Alonso, they've got some power at the top of this lineup. So Chatwood doesn't give up a lot of power himself, but I do like this Mets stack because I just think Chatwood is an abomination. He's so bad.
He really is. He gets a lot of ground balls. That's it.
Yep.
That's really it. That's all he does. Nothing outside of that. Not a good pitcher to play. Stacking against him here, probably not the worst idea. The only thing is how long is he going to go into this game?
Yeah, that's the question. He's only gone.
He threw 53 his last time out,
53.
so I think he'll throw 70 or so.
If things are going well, yeah, maybe 70. I don't think you're going to get Chatwood into the through 5 though. So the win probability here is slim to none, I think, for Chatwood.
Yep. Let's talk about Milwaukee and Cincinnati. Jimmy Nelson, he's made 2 starts since returning from the injured list. Looking good last time out, and then he imploded. Let's not ignore the fact that these starts came against Miami and San Francisco. He wasn't exactly placed or thrown into the fire. If anything, if you asked a pitcher, hey, you're coming back from a pretty nasty injury, you've been on the IL for a while, you just made some tune-up starts, your shoulder's feeling better, you can pick your first 2 starts. Who do you want? He's like, I'll take Miami and San Francisco. Well, that didn't work out very well. He actually got crushed in both of them. He couldn't get through 4 innings in either. Well, he threw 4 and 3. I mean, honestly, at this point, man, I don't know what to make of Jimmy Nelson.
I mean, he just can't find the strike zone in his first couple outings. So, his stuff is okay. Like, he had an 11% swinging strike rate in the last game. So, maybe there's some positives here. He's not getting chases, though, 27% in the first couple starts. First pitch strikes at 46%. So, small sample, but you and Adam mentioned before his first start, he was having real issues in the minors with walks.
Mm-hmm.
And that has not changed. 3 walks in both these games in limited time. So going up against this Reds team, if Nelson's going to be chalky, and right now we've got him in the teens, then I don't I'd rather go to some of these other arms Like I'd rather go to Wainwright at a little bit more ownership. I'd rather go to Gallon or someone like that. He's just not been impressive to me at all. So
I have no idea how Nelson's getting 15% ownership right now. That's crazy to me.
just being a favorite at this price where some of these other guys aren't.
Yeah, I hear you. It's just I still don't like you. I know you want to get to a player before everyone else does. You don't want to ride the wave once it's curling, but at the same time, he's shown nothing. He's never been an elite strikeout guy. He's not pitching at a good park for righties. Honestly, if he's coming in at basically the same ownership as Wainwright, I'll take Wainwright any day of the week over Jimmy Nelson here. I don't think it's close, to be honest with you. What has Jimmy Nelson shown? And until he can limit those walks, he's not going to get far in games. He's going to walk Joey Votto every time he faces him.
Yep. And then like the Reds aren't a good strikeout matchup either. So even
Not
if you
at
say,
all.
okay, well he's still missing some bats, which he's not really. 20%, that's bottom 5 in the MLB versus righties. Just like a league average team overall, 101 WRC plus. Where are they at in walk rate? You mentioned Votto.
You
They're
say
like
where
in-
the Reds at in walk rate against righties,
Yeah,
right?
8.3, so they're right smack dab in the middle. So
Yeah.
it just doesn't seem like the spot for Nelson, especially if he's getting ownership. Maybe it comes down throughout the day, but yeah, yikes.
Yeah, I'm not huge on it. I can tell you that much. At all. I'd rather go a lot of other places on this slate, even if it's not the deepest slate at the top. And then Tanner Roark, I think this is the day where the home runs start to come, and I wouldn't be surprised if it came in bunches. It's a Brewers team that even against good pitching can hammer it. I mean, we saw 3 solo shots against Verlander and 15 strikeouts. They're one of the most like high upside matchups for pitchers because of their K rate, but they also have a 192 ISO versus right-handed pitching, which ranks top, it's 9th in the league. And that's on the active roster. They walk 10% of the time. I just don't buy into Tanner Roark allowing no power whatsoever. To me, it doesn't make sense. There's a 5.1 run total for the Milwaukee Brewers, and Tanner Roark is allowing a 381 WOBA to righties this year, 179 ISO with a 6.38 X. Oh, I'm sorry. That's to lefties. That's what I meant though. If I said righties, 6.38 XFIP, and 25% ground balls, Jake. There's nothing about Tanner Roark with his 5% K minus BB rate that suggests he shouldn't be allowing power to good hard hitting teams in a good park like Miller.
Oh yeah, I think the Brewers right now for GPPs, I think they're my favorite stack. If this ownership comes close to even sticking on Roark, so he's getting quite a bit of ownership right now, right next to Wainwright at 20%.
How is that possible? I know
no
he's
idea.
cheap. How is that possible?
Yeah, so you look like the XFIP and stuff looks okay.
Not
But-
against lefties, it doesn't. It's it's above 6.
So against righty, like that's always been his thing. Like against righties, he's been solid. He's had huge splits for his career. But Yelich is a huge problem. Moustakas is a huge problem. So is Grandal and Thames and Shaw. So
Yep.
this is like one of the worst matchups you could imagine for Roark. 33.3% line drive rate to lefties, 26.3 to righties. So, I mean, the quality of contact he's giving up is terrible for him. And it's great for the Brewers. So, yeah, I'm all over the Brewers here. I don't have much interest at all in Roark. He's not a guy that really gets swings and misses all that much either. So I'm not certain what we're seeing with the 20% expected ownership.
No, I don't. I mean, I guess people like cheap pitchers, but this is just such a ridiculously dangerous spot.
Mm-hmm.
He has an 8.8% swinging strike rate against lefties. By the way, his X WOBA and X ISO, get this. Manny, Laura, and I do a lot. We used to do a lot of shows together. We still do Sirius XM. We talk about the 400-200 club, 400 WOBA, 200 ISO. Well, his X WOBA is 398. His X ISO is 212 to lefties. Those are not encouraging numbers if you're Tanner Roark.
Yeah, really bad. So he's gotten very lucky so far. Uh,
I'm with you. I like the Brewers quite a bit here. You're gonna have to pay for them. I get that. Um, if Moustakas is in the okay, no. Oh wait, you know what? Moustakas might remain out today. That'd be
yeah,
interesting.
it seemed questionable. We don't have him right now in our lineup, but yeah, they're certainly not a lock to be in.
I still don't know if that's enough to get me on the Tanner Roark though.
No. And the Brewers bats are not getting that much ownership. Like double digits, low double digits for Grandal, and then Yelich is the only one that's getting real ownership at 18% right now.
Yeah. All right. Any Cincy interest?
Uh, Suarez at 4,100, just too cheap. I know it's not against the lefty, but he has power against both sides, and Nelson's just been so bad. So maybe him and Puig for 4,200. Decent value here for the Reds, but even if, like Nelson hasn't been getting blown up with power, like a ton of power or anything just yet, but yeah, the Reds are just kind of there for me.
If you haven't tried out Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports yet, we can help you get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points upon depositing. You can use them as cash on the site to play and, of course, withdraw the money, assuming you win. You've got low management fees on Yahoo. We talk about it all the time. Jake usually brings up the $0 or the 0% management fee that they run seemingly each day, right? And it fills so fast. Like there's only 200 spots left in that $300 or the $3 4,500 zero management fee MLB contest today. And they've been running it pretty much every day. But even their other contests like the 8K guaranteed today, $10 entry is a 12% management fee, which is a nice luxury of playing at Yahoo if you haven't done it so yet. And you know what? There's no max entry or no MME, 10 entry max, regardless of the size of the contest. So you're not going up against someone that's running 150 lineups with Cruncher. You're hand making them usually. And a lot of people enjoy that. So use the code AWESEMO. Sign up and use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. That's the sign up code. Get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. Check them out. I think you'll like it, especially those of you that aren't throwing 150 lineups in every night. This is the perfect spot to play if I'm talking to you right now. All right, Jake. Kansas City, Minnesota. 4 games to go here. Jake Odorizzi and Glenn Sparkman. I always think his name's Gary Sparkman. I don't know why, but it's Glenn. I'll have to get that right. But Odorizzi has been really good. Odorizzi's been really good, man. And it's funny how you change up a little bit of your pitch mix and you learn how to get same-handed batters out because he's always been decent against lefties. And now he's striking lefties out at 33%. He's striking righties out at 24%. He's allowing a sub 100 ISO to lefties and righties alike. The numbers are spectacular. His xFIP's a little bit higher. I think he's been a little bit lucky this season, but that doesn't mean that he hasn't been very good. And he's facing Kansas City today. Odorizzi's ownership right now on DraftKings is 6%. And mind you, he is pretty expensive. On FanDuel, Odorizzi's at 2% at 10K flat. And on our sponsor, Yahoo, Odorizzi at 9% at $50, man. Wow.
Yeah, so Odorizzi's just been so good, as you mentioned. I don't know, like, he's been fantastic, but 10-8 against KC, not the greatest team to target, just because they don't strike out that much. But Odorizzi, like, these numbers are insane. The 33% strikeout rate versus lefties. Like, you can basically play him against anyone, I think, at this point, even if he has been a little bit lucky. If there's no Montes in the lineup, that might change my opinion a little bit. He's got a questionable tag right now. This lineup all of a sudden becomes much worse looking, so I'd be more interested in Odorizzi if he's out. But if I would like to get to Odorizzi. I just don't know if I'm going to quite get there on this slate when I want to pay up for the Brewers. I want to pay up for the Yankees.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of tough. I mean, I think it would more so just be that you're trying to get away from the chalk, and getting to Odorizzi would be very interesting if you think that he can have a big game here, because I don't think anyone's going to want to pay up for him today. And so this is the thing about Jake Odorizzi. It's not just that he's been good, but he's been a high upside pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, we don't need the game log surf, but just to give you an example, 31, 30, 29, 32, 33, 27. That's what? That's 6 of them over his last 9. Odorizzi could put up legitimately big numbers. It's not like a Jose Berrios who's good, but generally speaking has a pretty low ceiling.
Yeah, he's really shown that ceiling quite a few times this season already. And the bottom of this lineup is pretty rough for the Royals. Bonifacio, Cam Gallagher, Billy Hamilton at the bottom there. Cuthbert, righty-righty. Soler, righty-righty. So maybe there is a little bit more strikeout upside, especially if there is no Mondesi. It's tough. I just don't know how often I'm getting to this 10, 11K range. There's only a couple guys, but I would like to get to some Odorizzi for sure.
I think if you're doing that, you're probably forcing it in. Like, you're not organically going to get much Jake Odorizzi today.
Agreed.
What about Minnesota bats?
Yeah, against Sparkman.
Yeah. They've had a 6-run total every single damn day recently.
Yeah, the good weather here in KC. So while it may not be the best park in neutral weather, when it's 85 plus degrees, a little bit of wind blowing out to center, and you've got all these power hitters for the Twins, I've got no problem with them. They're it feels like we talk about them every day, and they're just all right, 5.8 implied total, 6.2 implied total. Yeah, they're always up there, and they keep seeming to go under-owned as well if you've been looking at the top stack tool every day.
They do, and one of the reasons is they're not cheap. They always seem to all be around 4,900 to 5K, right in that range. But you know what? On a slate like this, if you were to, let's say, we'll throw Zach Gallen in there just for the hell of it, and who else were we talking about in this similar range? I'll throw Wainwright in there. They're facing each other, but whatever. That gives you a lot of room to do what you want. You throw Danny Jansen in there at 2,200. You got 4,700 per player remaining. It's not hard on this slate to pay up for hitting and to pay up for 5-man stacks that average 4,800.
Yeah, I mean, Gallen, Wainwright with the first 5 in the projected lineup for the Twins. You got 34, 33 remaining with your catcher, second base, and third base spot. If you put in Jansen, you've got about 4K per player. That's not even that difficult to do.
No, it's really not. All right, 3 to go, Jake. Tampa Bay and Oakland, Frankie Montes, Charlie Morton. Montes has been another revelation this season. I've been really surprised, not even surprised, but just impressed, because you knew that he threw that high 90s fastball, but it just didn't have a lot of movement. It didn't miss a lot of bats. Now he's got his swinging strike rate up to 11%. And when you really look at kind of the evolution of Montes, when you see what started happening with him, I want to see a paper trail. I want to be able to trace it back to know why they're getting better numbers and not just, a mirage, because then it all comes crashing down. But he sits 97 on his fastball. He's maxed out at 100 this year, 100 miles per hour. And he throws combined 50, almost 58% on the 4-seamer and sinker. And the whiff rate is just way up over these games where you see the strikeout rate increase. Another thing, though, is he didn't throw a splitter at all until this season. And I think this is where it really comes into play. The splitter, he's throwing almost 20%. For the first time he has never thrown it before. 23% whiffs on the splitter. So now you have a double-digit whiff rate on your fastball, on your 4-seamer. You've got a 23% whiff rate on your splitter. and a slider that he's throwing 25% of the time, he's getting 15% whiffs on that. So he's not one-dimensional anymore. He added that splitter, and look what it's done to his game.
Yeah, when you add that third pitch, that can be the
Huge.
difference. So, man, I don't know what Montes is a guy, I just can't get over this price. I'm just not quite there yet with him, but the numbers look really good for him. And the Rays, they're a pretty good strikeout matchup. And yeah, he's been striking out both-handed hitters, so it's not like he's just one-dimensional striking out righties or anything like that. Balanced lineup for Tampa. I was more looking at Morton, but maybe you might be talking me into some Montes here just a bit. Good
Look,
park.
I'm not even saying I'm high on him. I just think he is legitimately good. And
Yeah,
I like to draw that distinction you know what I mean? Because
sure.
some guys at 10K actually aren't as good as they've looked. I do think Montes is a very good pitcher, but I don't know. Okay, let me ask you this then, Jay. If let's say you were going to pay up, and I don't think it's a necessity today, but you have Montes, Odorizzi, and Morton at 10,000, 10,8, and 11,3 respectively. On FanDuel, I think it'll be harder to do so. But then on another two-pitcher site like Yahoo, you have Morton at 51, Odorizzi at 50, and Montes at 57. So pretty similar here. If you were to go to one of these guys, who is it? Like, I don't think it's Morton.
I was last night. It was Morton for me, but the more we talk about it, and I didn't see that Mondesi was out. It would probably be between Odorizzi and Montes actually. Um,
That's what I think too.
yeah,
Morton's really good. He has a
Morton's
34.
fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah, he has a 34% called plus swinging strike rate, which is like that is the same as Garrett Cole.
that's
You know,
pretty good company.
yeah, decent. The issue that I have with Morton is this Oakland team. What's their K rate against righties this
I
year?
think it's like 21% because I wrote up Morton because I
It's
was
bottom 8.
yeah.
It is, so that's the only thing that they're not striking out a lot. They're really not striking out, I'm not honestly I'm not sure what to do about it. It's a weird and tough spot. So
It is a tough spot. The thing I liked about Morton was just that he's had good starts. Like he's missed a lot of bats against teams that you don't normally get a
sure,
ton of missed bats against, like the Twins and the Angels.
yeah,
And then he had
he's
a good start
consistent.
against the
He has a
A's.
track record. Yeah.
So I was thinking more raw points, but the other two guys are looking more appealing the more I look at it.
So I guess here's the question I would have for you: is Morton worth the extra, say 1,300 over Montes, or are none of them worth it at all?
I don't know that any of them are worth it at all, like at face value, just raw point wise. But just in terms of getting a different lineup construction, I'll probably have sprinkles of at least two of these guys once I get to lock.
All right. Yeah, Montes, that splitter though, what a difference it's made this
For sure.
season. And it's hard for me to have any interest in the Rays or in Oakland.
Yeah, minuscule implied totals here, well below 4 for both teams. Not really looking at bats here. Two respectable pitchers for sure.
So I'm interested. I'd love to when we get the update, when we get the projections for today from Alex. Use the promo code MLB Strategy. By the way, if you want to get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus subscription, same projections and ownership projections and stack tool that Awesemo himself uses every day. The lineup builder, which is really cool. It's got the implied totals built into it. The Fantasy Cruncher add-on, all of our articles from Jake, myself, Adam, Josh, and all of the other sports too. You're talking PGA, NASCAR, everything. We got if if they have DFS for it, we've got content. So use the promo code MLB Strategy when you sign up. You get 50% off your first month. It's worth it, and we hope you come check it out. Say what's up in the Slack chat when you do, and we'll show you around. So I would love to run his projections just with no randomness, no ownership caps or anything, and just see if I were to, no, set it at 50% cap just to see if we get any Morton or Montes or Odorizzi.
Yeah, I don't think we would. Maybe we would if we weren't prioritizing hitting. I don't know. I think they're all.
Well, I don't know what they're
project-
gonna. I don't know what he's gonna have them projected at. Is what I
Yeah.
mean.
I think they're all going to project as pretty similar values, but you're just going to see, like, if you just run it without trying to force them in, I don't think you're going to get a lot of them because the Yankees bats
Yeah.
are going to they're going to have such nice value. Maybe you do with a Toronto stack, though. Maybe you get one of those guys with Toronto.
Maybe. My guess is we probably get like a ton of LeBlanc when you're just talking about optimals, a ton of Bundy and Wainwright and those type of guys.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Maybe even Tanner Roark. I don't know. But
I hope not.
yeah, me too. But I'm saying just like unadulterated crunches to see if you get anything. And I don't know if you would. We can talk about that later. You're on the Live Before Lock show tonight?
I am. Myself and Chris.
And Adam and I will be on the deeper dive so we can cover all of that. All right, 2 games to go here. Making pretty good time. Madison Bumgarner. Ferguson as your probable long reliever and Julio Urias as your probable opener. Urias is, well, we don't even need to talk about him. Ferguson's expected to be the long guy here. It's funny. He's supposed to be the long guy, but he's been throwing what? Like 34, 30, 20 pitches. Who knows? Maybe he was throwing more at the minor league level before he came up. We'd see. But anyway, you got him and Bumgarner. Run totals for this game shouldn't really shock anybody. 3.3 for the Giants, bad team there. 4.3 against Bumgarner for the Dodgers. I mean, are you interested in any pitching here? And even if you were interested in Ferguson, do we have any faith that he'll throw more than 50 pitches?
No, I think 50 is even generous. Like 34, 30, 20, 30, 25, 4, 14. Like he's not going deep. And I think I read somewhere that it's going to be more of a true bullpen game. So you might get Urias for a couple innings, Ferguson for 2 to 3, and then who knows what happens after that. So, I'm probably out on the Dodgers pitching for sure. And then Bumgarner, just a really tough matchup against the Dodgers. They're not a team I love targeting. I know Bumgarner's been fine, but I'm more interested in like Chris Taylor, 3,200, Kike Hernandez if he's leading off. Those are 2 of your better values. And then Turner at 4K, his price is continually broken on DraftKings, it looks like. So some Dodgers bats, Bumgarner isn't the guy that I want to just stack up against because it is only a 4.3 implied total. But you're seeing some really obvious values on the Dodgers regardless. Kike is $7 on Yahoo.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I wouldn't be... I always love referencing his BVP against Bumgarner because it's just so silly. It is one of the wildest things you'll ever see in your life. Are you familiar with it?
It's ringing a bell now that you say that.
All right, so Kike Hernandez, 48 at bats for his career, 49 plate appearances, 24 hits. So he's batting 500 against him. 10 extra base hits. The numbers are insane. Like it's remarkable that he could maintain this. And it seems like every time he faces him, he keeps it going. So look, I'm not a BVP guy, but Kike Hernandez has always hit lefties well anyway. And I think at a ridiculously cheap price tag like this, he's probably, of all the teams we've talked about, Kike Hernandez is probably the best value bat so far on the slate.
Across the board, I would say. Yeah.
Right?
If he's leading off, for sure. Dual position eligibility. Like, he's the optimizer play for sure on basically every site.
Right.
What about...
By the way, Bumgarner's allowed 14 home runs this year, too. Huh. And 7 of them have come at home where we know it's very friendly for pitching. It's not like he's been infallible whatsoever.
You worried at all about playing Muncy here or Bumgarner for that matter because of their little dust up?
Oh yeah.
Muncy told him to go find the ball in the ocean or whatever, and Bumgarner did his normal thing where someone hit a homer off of him and he pouts.
What a great experience that was to watch. I don't know. Maybe he'll plunk him.
I mean, the umps are gonna say something before the game, like. They're going to tell him, like, if you bean someone, you're out, right? They're not going to let that happen.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I don't know. But I do think that some of these Dodger bats are routinely underpriced because they're not good against righties, but they hit lefties well.
mm,
And then when those games come across where you've got a lefty, the price tags aren't really risen. So, I mean, Hernandez is just really cheap everywhere. And by the way, before we go to this last game, unless you have any other takes, uh, Julio Urias, I think he probably throws the first 2 innings.
okay.
That would make sense to me. Look at his workload. He's routinely worked 2 or 3 innings. So I only mention that because he is a lefty and Ferguson is also a lefty. So you're probably going to get, I'd say, 5 innings from this combination of lefties. But it's the San Francisco Giants anyway, so what does it matter?
Yeah, maybe you go to like Longoria or Tyler Austin or someone like that for cheap.
Yeah, I was looking at their splits against lefties like individually yesterday. I couldn't believe how bad these guys have been. Other than Kevin Pillar, who has like 4 homers with the platoon advantage, Buster Posey has a .011 ISO against lefties this year. He used to crush them.
Yeah, he's over the hill.
All right, Jake. Baltimore and Seattle last game here. Dylan Bundy. Batista is your probable opener. LeBlanc should be the long relief guy here. Both pitchers getting monster ownership projections right now. As a matter of fact, on DraftKings, Wade LeBlanc and Dylan Bundy are 1 and 2 respectively in ownership, 30%, not just at the pitcher position, but overall. By the way, did you see that Montes was projected at 21%?
No, I just missed that.
Third highest projected pitcher. I just saw that now. That very surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean, give me some Odorizzi and maybe even some Morton if that's good. Like if everyone's gonna flock to Montes.
No doubt. Yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, what are your thoughts here? Two of the 2 highest priced players and pitchers right now on DraftKings.
Every time I think I'm gonna get Bundy as like a sneaky low on play when he's priced up a little bit, I like the night before, I'm always surprised at his ownership one way or the other. Like he has the strikeout upside. He's gonna see a few righties here, but some guys that also have big K rates. It's like Williamson, Santana, and Tom Murphy isn't a great hitter, but like there are gonna be strikeouts here for Bundy if he's on. Mariners just rolling out a pretty rough lineup these days. So I understand it at 7,600 for Bundy. If this ownership sticks, once I start filtering out my lineups, I will probably get more of guys like Pivetta and the guy for the Zach Gallen in that range. So I don't know that I'm going to quite get to, is he at 30% or 20?
30.
Yeah, okay. I don't know that I would get to 30 on Bundy. I was thinking more in like the 15 to 20% range, somewhere in there. I will have him.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm going to have him. I'm going to have some LeBlanc too, but I'd like rather play Bundy here.
I just don't like the amount of lefties in this lineup. I mean, he's not allowing power to lefties, at least not a lot of it. It has been one of the strangest things all year because he's striking righties out at 30%. He's allowing 2.2 home runs per 9. It's crazy, right? 267 ISO with 30% strikeouts. But then against lefties, he is allowing 1.3 home runs per 9, not as bad. 280 BABIP, 538 xFIP, and 17% strikeouts. I agree that this is not an aesthetically pleasing Mariners lineup. If you're EMAC, but dude, there's a lot of lefties in the lineup.
Yeah,
there's going to be 6 of them.
Right. So, some of them have power. Vogelbach, especially, he's the one guy that's concerning, and Santana does have power from the right side still. So, not like a cupcake matchup at all for Bundy here. I just thought we would see him at like 12% ownership rather than 30 on the first.
Yeah,
update.
and I'd have a lot more interest if that was 30% on a guy that is as volatile as Bundy is and facing this many lefties. I don't know. Seems a little tough to get there for me, but who
Near
knows?
5 implied total too. I thought that would scare some people off.
Do they have a 5 implied total?
4.9, yeah, for this awful lineup.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I did, but I don't. So I guess we'll find out. But this Mariners team, there are going to be some strikeouts, but Vogelbach's at 22% against righties this year. It's not that high. Narvaez at 20.9%. Seager at 20%. Who else? I'm just looking at some of the lefties.
D. Gordon.
I mean, what's that?
D. Gordon, where's he at?
16%. Yeah. But then you have, so this is why the matchup is interesting, because you've got like Crawford at 27, you've got Santana at 27, you've got Beckham at 30, you've got Malik Smith at 27. There are no question there are strikeouts in this lineup.
Right.
It's just, can we get Dylan Bundy to strike someone else that isn't a left or that isn't right-handed out?
Right. I think he's at like 18, 19% for the season versus lefties. So
right.
It's just not, it's not a perfect matchup at all. But
no, I get the ownership. Like you said, I get it, but I don't think this is a spot where like Bundy's locked in. I do have some interest in Mariners bats for sure. If Bundy's going to be that popular, I absolutely have interest in Mariner bats here.
Makes sense.
Well, look how cheap they are. You want to talk about inexpensive hitters? Vogelbach's the most expensive at 4,500. Narvaez is 41. Malik Smith 43. Domingo Santana 41. Corey Seager 38. D. Gordon 37. These guys are really inexpensive today.
Yeah, they are. Vogelbach's the guy that sticks out to me. It's going to stick out to most people against Bundy. But yeah, I mean, this is one where you probably play both sides if you're even playing a 20 max.
Right. All right. And I'm guessing that overall ownership on Seattle is going to be really low. Vogelbach projected only 7% on DraftKings.
That's pretty nice as a leverage play for sure.
It's not bad. All right, Jake. Well, I guess that'll do it for us, unless you want to talk about Wade LeBlanc in Baltimore. That floor is yours.
He's over-owned right now. I understand getting some ownership to LeBlanc. I think he's going to come down a little bit as more people start to look into these pitchers. But it's possible he is the highest owned pitcher on the slate.
Craziness.
So he has not been great. And the Orioles are also not great. 26% K rate, but he doesn't get a ton of swings and misses. So I just don't know how often he really kills me here at under 6K. Like I think it's not that likely that he outscores all the other 5K pitchers or 5 to 6K pitchers. So I'd like to spread my exposure out in that range if everyone's going to LeBlanc here.
Yeah, that's a reasonable take. It's like, it's unlikely that he's going to kill you, but I don't think not having him kills you either. So if you're looking to pay up for bats, it makes sense to get LeBlanc. But you probably want to, like, this is where if I'm paying up for bats, I would love the idea of getting some lesser owned stacks on a slate where there's plenty of good ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Hey, if you like the show, hit us with a thumbs up. If you want to see more of it, it helps us out a lot. We greatly appreciate it. Like the video. It allows us to keep doing this and gets the name out there a little bit more. Subscribe, hit that notification bell as well so you always know when we're going to be dropping new content. You got anything else before we head out for the day, Jake?
Yeah, just thanks for watching, guys. Keep an eye on ownership. It's going to be very important today. A pretty tough pitching slate. Keep an eye on weather, of course. We'll take you up and until lock, Chris and I later, and be sure to tune into the deeper dive.
And check that early bird out every day as well. If you're a night owl or an early bird, it works for you because it's coming out late at night. You can listen to it early in the morning, get that first foundational look for each slate. And Jake made his debut on the 2-man early bird this week. Did a solid job.
Oh yeah, fun stuff.
Check everything out. Oh, by the way, MLB strategy, 50% off your first month, Awesome Up Plus membership. You got throughout the day. Check it out before we've got the deeper dive live before lock. And you know what? If you don't want to do it right now, you don't have the money, you don't have the time. We're right here on YouTube, not going anywhere. So You can find us pretty much anywhere these days. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Early Bird. And, of course, tonight, Deeper Dive Live Before Lock, going to take you up till 7 o'clock.